This image shows all the different environments of deposition where sediments can accumulate, from the high mountains with ice and glaciers to the lowlands with estuaries, out to the desert environment with very little water. Water that does exist in the terrestrial environment washes sediment down into our ocean basins. In our ocean basins, we have a wide variety of depositional environments, whether it's graded beds forming in a turbidity current as a landslide comes off the edge of the continental shelf, or swamp sediments where coal could be deposited, or river sediments and delta sediments where you may get coarse sediment and some conglomerates. You can have environments where you have a reef and there can be fossils in that environment. So there are many different environments where sediments can form, terrestrial on land and then in the marine environment just off the coastline. Let's start up in the high mountains with the glacial environments. Glaciers are going to grind rocks. They're going to pluck rocks from the edges of the mountains in the valleys where they are flowing. When the glacier recedes, there's going to be left behind what's called till. And that sediment is going to be poorly sorted. Ice doesn't sort out sediment. It's also going to be angular from the crushing action of that glacier. If there is, so that's till, there can be outwash from the glacier where meltwater sorts out the sediment beyond the toe of the glacier. In the mountains, like Boone, where Appalachian State is, there are these high mountain streams. High mountain streams are going to be flashy, so you can have a flash flood in that environment. The stream is going to pick up sediment, like from this talus slope in this image, and bring it into the channel. Most of the time, those giant boulders are not going to be moving. They're going to move during a flood. That's when large clasts are going to go downstream. There is I have a dog in my lap. Go. This is where breccias, so the angular rocks would, if they lithified, would form, and also conglomerates where you have the coarse grain, somewhat rounded or round river gravels. The river environment in the mountains is a high velocity. When the mountain slope changes to a lower slope, there's going to be a change in velocity of that sediment. And the sediment that the river is carrying then is going to stop moving. So if it forms an apron at the base of a slope, that's called an alluvial fan on the mountain front. And an alluvial fan is going to have conglomerates, but it's also going to have arcosic sandstones. Remember, those are the sandstones with feldspars in them, so not very weathered rocks, minerals. So feldspar can accumulate in those sands. In the desert environment, there can be windblown sandstones, so we'd have cross-bedded dune sands. They are usually going to be cases where the finest sand and clays has blown away, so you have medium sands. There can also be evaporites. Evaporites are going to form when there's water in the desert environment, and then that water evaporates, leaving behind an evaporite, like salt or halite or gypsum. The river environment, so we're coming out of the mountain stream, and now we have a river with a floodplain and a channel. The floodplain is going to have sediments on it that are finer grained, since there's slower water in the flood zone. Then the channel is going to be coarser grained. So the channel may have sand in it, but so that would be a sandstone channel fill. The floodplain deposits would be more like a muddy deposit and maybe with some organic material. Lakes are going to have still water. They can have waves and there can be some preserved ripple marks. Oftentimes you'll have layers like this where it'll be seasonal layering where you'll have laminated sheets of really fine grained muds that are going to record changes in the season, where you may have an influx of silty sediment, and then sometimes you'll just have clay falling out of from suspension.